Chris, would you mind being in the role of secretary this evening? Good evening. Welcome to the October 8th meeting of the Town Board, the Town Zoning Board of Appeals. Let's start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would please rise. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Bolo,
Present.
Mr. Hauser,
Present.
Mr. Santola,
Present.
Mr. Spampanato,
Present.
Mr. DeMarco,
Present.
Mr. Ottuso.
Here.
We do have proof of legal publication from the Webster Herald for the agenda for this evening's meeting. We do only have a board of 4 members. We do get 1 member that's absent this evening. If you do any of the applications, you still need to get 3 yes votes out of the 4. Is there anyone who would not wish to proceed this evening because of that? Did you? All right, then we will proceed with the meeting. Anyone who does speak at this evening's meeting, I would request that you write your name and your address on the sign-up sheet that's by the entry door so that we have the record for the minutes of the meeting. And with that, Chris, could you please read the first application into the minutes?
First is an application given matter, 671 Willow Lane accessory structure located at 671 Willow Lane. Applicant Brian Bishop is requesting area variances to allow a side setback less than what is required and to allow the placement of the accessory structure to be nearer to the front property line than the rear line of the main residence associated with the construction of a 500 square foot detached wood frame structure of a 0.46 acre parcel of the SPL number 065.13-2-11 located in R3 Single Family Residential District under sections 350-12 and 350-36, the Code of the Town of Webster.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Good evening. Did you want to give us your update to this application?
Yes, so I submitted a couple pages, and the new idea is to take the metal siding and install it horizontally to make it look similar to the primary residence. That 9-inch from rib to rib is going to be very close to the existing siding on the primary structure.
Josh, additional information is submitted today, picturized.
We'll just speak to that. It's just part of the presentation. Some of the ideas off of this, we want to make sure to clarify or get clarification At the last meeting, it was once again asked to make sure that it was more residential in nature. So once again, this is instead of, as the architecture elevation showed at the last meeting, where it was vertical and it's felt that it looked more industrial, like a pole barn would be in an industrial park. The alternative is then to move it horizontally, which is what most of the siding is in this neighborhood. And then the pictures that were given today were just, once again, accent pieces, having the light fixtures above the doors matching, or adjacent to the doors rather, matching the ones that are at the main structure of the house. And then later on today, I don't want to speak to it right now, but later on, he has rethought an idea to try to blend the two together between the main house and this accessory structure. And that's part of why he's brought in an application to enhance the front of the house with a front porch. Plus, he was hanging out with his neighbor, and they wish there was a front porch. So that blends with this one with the siding that would be horizontal in nature and accent each of them together. In addition, there's shutters on the main structure. Putting shutters on this house, on this accessory structure to match the house, to make it more complementary to the residential nature. Is that what the board's looking for from the last clarification at the last meeting after it was tabled? Sorry, I missed that one, I was out of town.
Yes. Do you have any renderings of what it is that you're planning on building?
The renderings would still be the same elevations that were before. The only alternate is that the architect drew the lines vertically and the lines would be horizontally on the siding. But no, the architect hasn't been commissioned to make additional renderings beyond that for that added cost. The only pictures they were was neighboring residential structures in multiple communities. The other accent piece is possible wainscoting at the bottom just to break up the siding as it is. But once again, those are just accent pieces. We're trying to find out exactly what the zoning board's looking for residential in nature.
Actually, yes, I'm going to have the attorney, the chairman of the planning board, Mr. Kashani, had provided a letter to the zoning board with recommendations as to what the town looks for in this type of a structure.
Okay.
So I'm gonna
Did you
have the
receive
attorney-
the letter from Chairman Kashani, the actual report?
I haven't received anything.
All right, I believe all the members.
I just received this evening.
Right, and I know Josh had mentioned earlier that both outside the deadline, correct?
From the chairman?
Yes.
Yes, we had mistakenly thought that it was provided to the board in one of the previous month's applications, and we recently discovered that it was not. So yes, we did just provide it to you all tonight.
All right, so let me just read this for the applicant so that you have the benefit of the information. As I said, it's from the chairman of the planning board. The correspondence is regarding the above referenced application, which is a matter that's before the ZBA tonight.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
I'm having difficulty hearing you over here.
Sure. As I said, the letter is from the chairman of the planning board. It's dated on October 4th. It's regarding the referenced application that's before the board this evening. It indicates that per the planning board's design guidelines, the type of project would typically require enhanced treatments such as decorative stone or brick for the first 4 feet above grade and any sides that have visual exposure from the road. Should have appropriately sized windows, roof line, overhead doors, etc., to ensure the character of the structure remains residential in nature. And the chairman opines that the application as submitted falls short of those requirements. He goes on to indicate that although allowed by code, the 20-foot height is excessive, it doesn't fit with the existing character of the neighborhood. There are concerns that the applicant will either add a floor to the second story or utilize the space for his commercial electrical business. Furthermore, the roof line materials and elevation drawings as submitted do not meet the standards of the planning board, don't meet the standards that the planning board would require. on a project of this nature. As part of the planning board's review, we require the applicant to identify a color and bring in a sample of the material proposed. Applicant also referred to several existing accessory structures in the neighborhood that have been approved by the planning board. However, the examples used were fundamentally different than his proposal, that being in both location and appearance. It's the planning board's opinion that the proposal does not meet many of the legal standards needed for the findings of fact. In that situation is self-created. The appearance of the proposed structure would be out of character with the surrounding area and would create a detriment to the neighboring properties. It's for these reasons that we recommend that the application be denied. So it might be helpful, because I know some of these issues were addressed in the previous meeting as to where we got off, which was, I know there were multiple components, some of which were okay, others which were problematic.
My recollection is that the structure looked very commercial and needed to be softened up, so it met the character of the neighborhood, so it did not look like a commercial building. That's what I'm, that was one of the biggest issues that I had with the proposal.
The board was concerned with the height since it was going to be only a single-story structure. And really had requested renderings so that we could see exactly what the structure is going to look like, more than just the one-page sketch that we received. I guess my own thoughts, given that this has recently received material from the planning board chairperson, and that the applicant has not seen this, I guess I would not be opposed to the applicant tabling for one more time, looking at the planning board letter that's from Tony, from Mr. Kashani, and then if you choose to come back at the next meeting, have a design for us that meets this criteria, or
So just to clarify, is this gonna go to the planning board for their review, where it would add in another month, or are you doing the review that the planning board did, or
the
do you want us to
planning board-
meet what that letter says?
The planning
Just
board gave
clarify
us,
that.
and I'm just speaking for me.
Yep.
The planning board gave us this letter of the things that they would expect from an accessory structure in a neighborhood such as this is going to be located. We just received this correspondence, so I understand that the applicant has not received this yet. But there's a paragraph here that's specifically what we've been trying to beat around the bush, that what we'd like to see as far as the aesthetics of the building. There's the function that you need to be able to store stuff inside, but the outside, based on where it's located, if it was behind the house and met all of the location criteria, I don't know that the board would be as concerned with the aesthetics, but because of the location and it's right out in the open, visible, it
Okay, thanks. So you'd like to table it for another month?
I'm just one person.
I just want to be clear on something. Josh, you had indicated, I copied an email from mid-afternoon, 3 o'clock. There was a change between you and the applicant. It was late, and I guess that's what I was referring to. There was late submittals.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
The only submittal that I have, maybe not have everything, is the example of the horizontal siding. Was there more than this?
Correct. I can clarify that. I transmitted to him asking if I could present it as part of our presentation today, meaning part of the presentation we would put on the screen, and he said it was beyond the deadline. It was clarifications as we gathered more information, even, or ideas, even from this weekend. So it was not part of the submission, no,
Okay.
but it was once again working the design progress to this. That's what you're in your hand. is the
Understood, but
submission.
this is the totality of what was submitted in terms of.
In terms of the update from the last meeting, yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yes.
So, I I just want to get clarification. You said renderings, that if the board, it seems inferentially that they'd like to see that. You're indicating,
I'm indicating that the architect gave them before, and that's what the architect felt was a rendering. And now,
Just this.
right, that's the elevation view was what the architect deemed as being a rendering. You want more detail on the selections of the exterior elements, the wainscoting at the bottom. The planning board just clarified on that, because that's what I'm feeling is there. But no, it wasn't submitted any of the prior applications, and what was submitted from last month to this month, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, was the asking of switching the siding from vertical to horizontal to make it less industrial looking.
look, you're of course free to submit or not submit
Yep,
anything.
yep.
And I don't think the board's trying to, drive you to spend more money in the application by asking the architect to do more work than is necessary, but it sounds like the board's struggling with this whole commercial appearance. I would assume that a rendering that addresses that, I'm assuming favorably for yourselves, some softening, whatever that might consist of, is probably going to be the best thing for you to do.
So for instance, this one, pointing to this one directly, that's what this is trying to resemble, is showing how the architectural would soften it and match it, the house. Is that clear?
No, that isn't what, if I'm looking at the same thing that says master rib, wide rib panel,
Yep,
that's a material specification. It says nothing about how it looks on the structure, it says nothing about how the color, or how it fits in and stuff like that. Although this is good information, it's not the only information that I'm not gonna speak for the rest of the board, but we wanna see what it's gonna look like. Have them draw almost a perspective or something like that, or even if it's elevations showing each side.
isn't that what was submitted, other than the lines are vertical? Sorry, 2 meetings ago. Sorry, 2 meetings ago, Mr. DeMarco.
With the most current stuff, and this way, we can look at it and help decide whether or not we believe it's fitting within the character of their neighborhood. I don't believe this, I don't have enough information to say yes, it does. So now, I don't think it actually meets that threshold, but that's just my opinion. And I think if you were to look at Chairman Kashani's letter and address those, that would go a long way in illustrating to the board what we'd like to see with that as well.
But going back to it, for the submission, that was the month prior that was submitted from Jeff Lawson, the architect. That was the rendering, and once again, it just wasn't commissioned to have him change the siding lines from vertical
Again,
to
this is all
horizontal.
new information. In order for us to have a clear picture of what you're intending on doing, based on the information that the planning board chairman gave you, and that's a big hint from him. I mean, he's providing you a lot of hints in that letter. I know you're going to.
Well, we haven't seen it, but
I
thank you
know.
for reading it.
I haven't seen it on
But
this evening.
very quickly,
either.
were there, other than the softening parts 2 meetings ago, were those renderings enough to show the scale of the structure, other than the lines of the siding, the orientation of the building doors, the windows?
I think, and again, speaking for just myself, but I think the consensus of the board at the last, I lost count of how many meetings, was that if this is what's going up, this is too industrial looking. It's very plain, the height has been a concern to the board, since it's no longer going to have 2 floors. There truly is no reason for it to be 23 feet tall, which makes it larger than any other accessory structure in the neighborhood, in that entire tract. And it's very warehouse looking. And that, I think, every member of the board has conveyed that in some way, shape, or form every time we've discussed it.
It's no secret that your client is an electrician.
Can I ask?
Go ahead, yes.
guess where, how the planning board was brought into this and how my, we've got it here, Josh, yeah. How my occupation was brought into
Well,
this. This is
at one
for-
meeting, you provided testimony, you're gonna have racks in that, they were going to be 25 feet tall. And you thought that it was customary in a residence to
I
have
currently
racks.
have them in my garage right now, yes.
Okay? It's not customary for residential property to have storage racks. Yeah. That tells me you got a commercial business, or your intentions of a commercial business occupying that site. We're trying to avoid that. This is a residential neighborhood.
Okay. These are personal beliefs.
I would like to bring it back to just, we do seem to meander over to it, but back to the original chairwoman, are you asking to table it until next month? I mean, this is new, that we just got this, so thank you for the copy of it.
We also just received this today. We had originally approved the side setbacks
Yeah.
and then referred the design of the building for the applicant to take that to the planning board.
Right, and that was when it was
Determined-
above 500 square feet.
But the applicant, or optionally, go to the planning board and you would have had this information in July. But since the application did not go to the planning board, the conditions referred it back to the zoning board to go back to go, do not put $200, start all over again. I don't know how many different ways to convey to you that this storage structure is not appropriate for that neighborhood in that location,
The way it's currently
the
presented.
way it's currently presented.
Okay.
So,
So we're recommending that you table it. Go back to the drawing board, if you will. Because if you don't, and the board was to vote tonight, it sounds as though it
Yep.
would not pass. So to keep the possibility alive,
Yep,
um,
so you were, so that's clarifying.
recommend
What was-
it to you.
So before, it was not a motion by the board or a recommendation by the board that you table it with this new information. You would like us to request tabling it.
yeah, I mean, the
that
board's
correct?
happy to act on it
Yep.
tonight, but I don't know that you would probably
Yeah,
get the
we'll-
result you desire.
We'll request tabling until next month. And once again, get a rendering with materials and a depiction on it from a licensed architect, or does it have to be a licensed architect or not?
No, just,
No,
Okay.
just,
if you have someone, your kid or your cousin or nephew or niece is good with Photoshop, just something that shows us what you are going to build and how it's going to look
Okay.
next to the house or
And
with
we-
colors as
So
well.
you want a rendering with the house rendered too?
it doesn't.
Doesn't matter,
Okay.
just something that shows us the basically volume and scope of the building with how that new horizontal siding is going to look with it, and any other conditions that you read in the
In this
planning
letter.
board letter
Yep.
that you may or may not want to
Okay.
add on to the drawing.
Yeah, so we would like to request this to be tabled until next month for this application.
November, we started November 19th. Yes, it is. So you're requesting to table this until November 19th, which is
Yes.
the next meeting of this board.
Yes, and real quick to Josh, I can find the deadline date on the website.
Yes.
And we'd have to still meet the same application as this if it was an application deadline, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yours will be October 29th.
Is the meeting?
Is the deadline?
Deadline, okay, thank you.
For the 11-19 meeting.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion to table this application until the November 19th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, well, we'll see you next month.
Yep. Thank you for the letter
And,
today. Can you still send it by email to me? The letter?
Sure.
Thank you.
Does it make sense? This is the same applicant for number 6 this evening? Or no?
No, because it was publicly noticed, we don't want to alter your agenda.
corner.
Hold on.
It's separate enough that I think we can hear this one. I don't think I would take it.
You don't want to keep me down. Okay, well, good.
Well, I don't think there's a reason to.
Okay, no
Is
problem.
there- Excuse me, was there any time for public comment on this?
No, because it was tabled.
And we had closed the public hearing
2 months ago.
2 meetings ago,
Okay.
3 meetings ago.
Wondering what the process was.
Okay, thank you.
Next.
Right, the next matter is the Waterview Apartments Phase 3. And the applicant has requested to table that meeting to a future meeting TBD. So I'll make a motion to table that to a yet unspecified meeting.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Great, that was tabled. Okay, number 3, please.
Mill Stream Run Single Family Residence located at 219 Mill Stream Run. Applicant John DeFazio is requesting an area variance associated with the construction of a new single-family dwelling with a rear setback of 35 feet, where the minimum required is 55 feet on a 0.51 acre parcel having FGL number 036.03-1-96, located in the WD Water Development District under section 350-11 and section 350-25 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Good evening, Al LaRue, McMahon LaRue Associates. Adrian DeFazio and John could not attend this evening. A little bit of history is, I think Ms. Ball knows, in the middle of COVID 2020, the board granted a variance for 44-foot minimum rear setback. The project didn't go forward due to COVID and due to cost of construction during that period of time. But since then, the home was redesigned with a covered porch in the back and the rear, extending further into the setback. Now we have a letter that was submitted to the town. The Coastal View HOA has approved it with conditions, of course, architectural, etc. And the homeowner does want to build as soon as possible. And if we get a variance tonight, we'll be preparing site plans for submittal to the planning board.
Other than the covered terrace that's been added to the back, it's essentially the same home that was approved in 2020?
It is, except for the exception of that covered porch in the back, which extended into the, further into the setback.
Okay.
I think it enhances the structure for sure.
But the lines of the house, other than that porch?
Oh, very much so,
are in the same
yes.
location? Okay.
The terrace is not enclosed,
It's partially enclosed, it's just screened in. The porch,
screened in terrace. with a
Yeah.
Roof on it.
yeah, that's right. In this town, you better be screened in. If you want to use it. There'll be a roof over it.
I just want to clarify, picture in my mind what's being proposed. Because it says covered, and obviously the definition was.
Yes, yeah, it's covered and screened. It's not part of this, main part of the structure.
Is there any intention to ever, granted the house isn't even there yet, but to enclose it completely and make that part of the interior space?
No, there is not, no.
Does anyone from the board have any other?
As long as the applicant doesn't mind us establishing a condition that it cannot be totally enclosed, but the screened-in portion remain screened in. You don't mind, do you?
No, not at all.
This is a public hearing. I will open the discussion to anyone from the audience who would like to speak for or against this application.
Yeah. You want to go to the mic?
Please. State your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Eric Koenig, spelled Koenig. I live at 392 Coastal View Drive, which is the property directly behind the property here in question this evening. I do recall having a notice from the town about 4 years ago with the request of the variance. I believe at the time I think it was 11 feet, 10 or 11 feet for the minimum setback difference. To be honest with you, I didn't really have a problem with it at that point. I mean, 10 feet on a larger lot like that, you're probably not going to notice the difference. Now you're talking double that amount. I went out there today, in fact, with a tape measure. I have a general idea of where the stakes used to be. They've since been long knocked down, 4 years of mowing and whatnot around that area. So I have a general idea of where that is. There is a raised berm that is between the property in question and my property that does partially obscure the two properties, like if the house were to be built, there is a raised berm there. It's probably about 6 feet high on the one side, and then it would be like the western side of the property, but it does slope down to essentially nothing on the far side. My concern is that 35 feet, it's very, very close to that rear berm, and especially with that covered porch, I don't understand why the whole house itself, if you want to keep that original setback of the 44 feet or whatever they had originally been approved, like just push the whole house forward 10 feet, right? I know I just said 10 feet doesn't make a lot, but like when you're talking either 55 feet or 35, and you're talking almost half of the distance that the house is now going to be coming into that minimum setback that's reset or allowed by the town. So again, I didn't have any issues with it at first, but I feel like 35 feet, especially when you look down the line of all those homes in the neighborhood. I'm very familiar with that HOA and the restrictions and rules and stuff that they apply to everybody in that neighborhood. It's they have a very particular idea of how that neighborhood is supposed to look, and I just feel like that house, if it's offset that much compared to the rest of the homes, is going to look out of place, and it's going to basically encroach essentially in my backyard. Especially if they eventually decide, I don't know what their future plans are, if they decide maybe put like a concrete patio or something like that, which typically people do on these enclosed, semi-enclosed porches, so they can kind of get outside. They're going to be right up against that berm. My kids play out back in the back there and stuff like that, so I'm just concerned that the original setback of 44, probably wouldn't have much of an issue with that, but the whole 20 feet when you're talking half the distance is a little bit too much. Unless they'd be willing to agree to plant up some screening, some evergreen trees or something like that would create some sort of natural barrier to kind of mitigate any sound. I'm more concerned with just like the view. We have a pool in our backyard. I have planted some trees on the top of that berm already at my own expense with the permission of the HOA. They've been growing there for 5 years. They're evergreen trees. They're probably about 10 feet tall, most of them already now. So that is providing some sort of buffer already, and I did that semi-anticipation of a home being built back there, but it doesn't completely screen it off, so maybe the applicant here tonight would be willing to agree to some sort of additional screening at their cost, and we kind of split the difference. I'm trying to be neighborly. I don't want to create a big problem, right? But rules are the rules, and we're all in our neighborhood. We're kind of forced into certain things that we didn't want to do necessarily with our property, and just feel like that would be a big change in that area of the property.
Sir, does your rear property line abut their rear property line, or do you have common space between?
The berm is common space, the berm itself. If I had to guess from the back of my property line to the back of where theirs is, it's probably the thickness of the berm, if I had to guess, is probably 15 feet maybe at the base, and then of course it naturally slopes upward. There's actually a walking path for the neighborhood that goes across the top of that berm.
Is it reflected on this Google Earth?
I'm going to pull up this email now.
If you're saying that common space is 15 feet, I think it's a little wider.
It might be.
So,
and again, that's a
it's-
rough estimate.
Yeah, it's wider than 15.
What number are you on the?
392.
And so, that common space
you look at all the rest of the homes on Mill Street run there, and the distance between, even just that first one there, 217, I believe is, that yellow one, they have that large patio on the back, and they're still probably 40 or 50 feet back to the property line there. It is a significant distance, so their house, due to the construction, or the outline of basically the footprint of the house, having that garage way out the front, really caused that house to be pushed back quite a distance. And that lot is actually not quite as deep as the other 217 next to it there. This berm kind of runs on an angle, cutting into that back corner there.
It looks like there's approximately 35 to 37 feet between the two lot lines.
Okay, and it's just my estimate.
This might help. This is the original five subdivision plan,
Anyone can see that.
and there's the lot in question, and there's the uses. And so this is on the house. On the street. You see like that?
All right, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, again, I'd just like to reiterate, I'd be totally fine with the original 10-foot. You know, I don't understand why, with this modification, it has to be that, that additional 10-foot beyond that, right? So the board, entertain that original one that was originally allowed. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Actually, the setback that we're requesting is from the step down, not the actual covered porch, which sticks out in a 45-degree angle. It looks like, and it just bumped out a little bit. There's a step down. So we took the extreme.
Is there no one else speaking for or against? Would you like to come to the podium, please?
I'm Massimo Pietrantoni, I'm also a resident in that area.
I'm sorry, your name and your address?
Massimo Pietrantoni, 394 Coastal View.
Go ahead.
I agree with Eric. There's an original proposal which seemed fair, and this one is exceeding what the original proposal was. So I'm supporting the last speaker, and I'm opposed to it.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else?
Yes, hi. David Winfield, 384 Coastal View. Just wanted to reiterate support for Eric as well. We're against it.
Just trying to get the location of the houses, okay. And the reason that you're against it?
We just feel like it's too close to the properties that are already there.
Okay.
Mr. LaRue, I'm scaling at step, so the width of that step would be 4 feet.
Pardon?
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing if there's no one else. Okay, public hearing is not closed, all right, continue.
I scaled the width of that step as far as, it looks like it's 4 feet wide.
I don't understand.
You indicated that the rear setback was taken from the step.
The step, that's right, it's about 4 feet, or, yeah, it's probably about 3.5. It's just like a little, step down to like a patio, like, that's what that is. So that's the extreme.
Josh, should we count the setback to the edge of the step or the edge of the building? How does that?
It would be the edge of the structure, so the posts holding up the roof. I don't think we would count the steps.
So we would not count the step.
Right. It was a little unclear on the drawing that that was a step, so we used the dimension that
Okay.
was
Yeah,
provided.
that's a foundation, like, you know, so.
4 feet 2 inches.
So now we're almost 40 feet instead of 35 point.
Okay, so then the bump out is just coming out
It's really about 3 feet
3
beyond,
feet beyond.
Yeah.
about 3 feet beyond
Actually, 4
the house.
So the- instead of being 44 feet, 43.8, it's actually 39.8.
Yes, something like
So just to be clear, Mr. LaRue, the difference between the original approved and what is proposed today, distance from the rear setback is how many feet?
9,
that. But that includes the
is
steps.
exactly the way
So
the
without,
application is.
Without
without
the
the
step.
steps, it's 5 feet?
5 feet, right.
And I'm sorry again, so that we're clear on the record, the reason for the change from the, I think you said the 2020 approval for the extra 5 feet is what reason?
To fill in the, to make it architecturally better, looking in the rear, and also provide the covered space, screened-in covered space.
Right, but if aesthetically, the architectural look is open to, I guess, a debate and opinion, but the covered, I'm sorry, the porch, the covered terrace, that was capable of being placed in the original approval, had it been there?
I don't know if it was there in 2020 or not, I didn't know.
Well, there's nothing about that distance that would have prevented it if they wanted to have included in 2020, is that right?
That's true.
Okay.
Is there any thought of just keeping the building line, just extending it from one end to the other instead of angling it out like it's shown on the plan? Just continuing it across from corner to corner, so you'd still have the original setback, or at least the setback that was originally approved 4 years ago.
It's a pretty small space, 10 feet. Deep is fairly small for a significant home.
I know that your folks who represent are not here this evening, correct?
That's correct.
The neighbors have proposed a lack of opposition in the event there was a berm. The second two speakers supporting the closest neighbor, if you will, didn't indicate that they were requiring or they were recommending the berm as well. I'm assuming that they're on board with the original neighbor that's opposing it.
He had requested additional screening
Right, so,
between the two Yes.
We're okay with the screening, we
Yeah,
understand
that's,
that.
that's the point I'm driving at. And I guess the one question is, with the placement of the berm, is that what the HOA controls, that parkland space in between the property?
Yep.
I'm assuming the proposal is, because then you'd have to inquire with the entire HOA that they should actually be on your client's property, the berm, as opposed to the space in between 219 and 392.
Sure.
There would be enough room, as best as you can tell, to do that?
Yeah, we can do something on that berm. In fact, the HOA was in favor of this as it stood, but certainly installing some landscaping on the property is anticipated in the HOA approval. So we're on board with that. We want to also be good neighbors, so.
Right, and that's obviously what we're all shooting for. And maybe I missed it at the beginning. So the comments from the HOA representative, you have already obtained their approval, or that's yet to come?
We have.
Okay.
We have a letter to that effect.
Okay. And is the HOA requiring the berm?
No, they say prior to installing any landscaping on that property, it's got to be approved by the HOA. But they brought up the issue of landscaping, so they're anticipating it, I'm sure.
Well, there is currently a berm between the two lots, as the land stands right now without any structure there.
Yeah,
So,
and we can certainly add some landscaping to that berm.
because I think the concern from the neighbors is just they don't want to see it.
Right.
And they don't want to hear it. And so if there's screening for both the sound and the visual, I think 392 would be most impacted. 394, it's quite a distance between those two corners, and there's a big apartment or public space in between it. 384 is far enough away that I think any planting is going to show any view that they would have. There's already some screening back there. Anyone else have any questions, Mr. Spampanato, Mr. Centola?
No, I'm good.
Comments? So what, I guess my question is, what is the true dimension then that we're looking at? If we're not counting, so it's, instead of 43.8, it's 38.8, so almost 38.
It's over 39. So 39.85.
Working with dirt. Does anyone want, well, does anyone want to run through the findings, or is there are there any changes that the board would like to see, or?
Well, no matter, well, assuming he gets approval, he still needs the landscape plan to be approved by the homeowners association. So in theory, if we were to grant him a variance, even with the conditions stipulated, provide additional landscaping, anyone opposed to the project, at least trying to make it better, will still have an opportunity to appear and inform their homeowners association of their concerns and have them be far more aggressive than I think we can be in providing landscaping.
Exactly. Josh, does this also need to go to the planning board, or no?
Single family,
They do more, the whole
Are exempt,
subdivision,
yes.
they've already done it, okay.
correct, it'd be an administrative section.
Right.
Just for the record, what was the initial variance granted?
40,
46.
44 feet, I think it was.
The original was 44.
Yeah, so
It was the original
the
approval.
covered, the edge of the covered area versus minus the steps is about 40 feet. Just a little over 40 feet from
So there's a 4-foot difference from,
the original one 4 years ago to what they're
To what they're
Press-
asking for
now.
this evening.
right,
So it's not 10, it's 4 feet.
that's right.
Okay. Someone to understand.
The proposed house, I believe, will fit in with the basic character of the neighborhood and will not result in an undesirable change to the essential character of the neighborhood, although admittedly there may be some visual impacts to people behind and either side of this. It is an empty vacant lot right now, so there is opportunity for redesign for a building that would fit in there, but the applicant has already gone through the expense of having some design and receiving variance, so I understand their desire to use this, even though it is somewhat self-created. The variance requested is not substantial, especially based on the variance that was approved 4 years ago. It's an additional 4-foot variance. It doesn't, the application does not adversely affect the physical or environmental conditions. And as I said, although it's self-created, I believe it's trying to work within the initial variance granted 4 years ago.
I am going to add, I do have the findings from the original approval. This application, minus the addition of the extra 4.5 feet, was approved on March 10th of 2020. And it did note that there is a forever wild buffer along the rear with a berm, so it should shield this from the properties to the north. And as well, let's see, there are several other homes in that subdivision with, it looks like essentially that same footprint, so the house is in character with the neighborhood. The request is not substantial. It is about 25%, but given that there's a buffer, it's not significantly substantial. No adverse physical or environmental impacts to the site or to the neighborhood. Yes, the difficulty is self-created, but again, the lots are small and homes in that subdivision are larger, so we've tried to minimize. And that's about it from the previous meeting.
I just wanted to-
I was referencing the findings from the previous, yes.
Just want to clarify that the variances to the main structure or the screen in the covered structure, not the steps. That's why the difference from what is advertised to what the board seemingly will approve this evening. So,
Thank you, that's good to know. And so the setback, instead of being 35 feet, would be approximately 39.8.
So, then,
Does anyone want to make a variance? Oh, wait a minute,
here,
sorry. Pursuant NYCRR Section 617 of the Environmental Code. I will make a motion for a type 2 seeker.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now, I would entertain a motion. Or I can make a motion. I will make a motion to grant an area variance to allow a 39.8-foot rear setback to the physical structure of the building, not the staircase, at 219 Mill Stream Road for applicant John DeFazio for the construction of a single-family home with a 39.8-foot rear setback where a minimum of 55 feet is required on a .51 acre parcel with SBL number 036.03-1-96, located in a WD Waterfront Development District under Section 350-11 and 350-25 of the Code of the Town of Webster. I would note that we do have a letter of approval from the HOA of Coastal View for this plan, pending approval by the zoning board. I would also condition any approved variance that 1 year meaningful construction to begin at least 1 year from this evening. All necessary governmental permits will be received by the applicant, and that significant screening would be placed between this property and the properties to the rear, so that it buffers the structure and hence the reduced setback from the neighbors to the rear and coastal view.
Second.
Mrs. Bola?
Aye.
Mr. Cosar? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Santola?
Aye.
Mr. Cosar?
Aye.
Mr. Spagnano?
Aye.
Okay, you have your variances with the conditions of the screening, the permits, and 1 year meaningful construction. And then hopefully you don't have to contact them.
Thank you.
And the screen room condition would be that the screen room would not be
Oh,
enclosed.
yes.
It's because it's 44-foot structure.
Yes. So it will not become a permanent enclosed structure.
Right.
Sharon Court Garage, located at 1093 Sharon Court. Applicant Dale Weiss is requesting an area variance to allow the construction of a ready-made garage workshop with a side yard setback of 5 feet, where the minimum required is 15 feet. If it's a 10 feet on a 0.55 acre parcel having SBL number 079.18-1-40, located in an R3 single-family residential district under section 350-12 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you describe your project to the board, please?
Dale Weiss, 1093 Sharon Court. We want to put a small garage workshop off our side driveway and requesting the variance to 5 feet from the property line along the northern hedgerow of our property. The structure will be mostly for some power tools and summer and winter storage.
Any board members that have any questions, comments?
When I visited the site, this afternoon, noticing the
more sense to put it on the other side of the property, on the south side. But then realized upon my property visit that there's already a garage addition there, so never mind. So that location is probably the most shielded. I was just concerned with the 5 feet being so close to the side, just being able to maintain between the shrubbery and the building, but
There's a hedgerow there with arborvitae, tall arborvitae. Of what he's proposing to build, so it will shield or be shielded from special neighbor.
okay.
My concern, other concern would be, what's the coverage of this, Josh? Because it looks like well, it's a ranch, but it looks like it's really sprawled out, so I'm kind of concerned that they need a variance for coverage.
Yeah, unfortunately, we weren't able to come up with the coverage because the survey map doesn't necessarily reflect some of the most recent additions to the house.
And there's the garage that's been added.
Yes, originally, we added the garage and converted the old garage as a mudroom. So that's the only thing that was ever added to the house once we owned it, was the new garage.
That and the deck and the pool.
Well, yeah, but on the house.
On the
it's-
north side.
On the house, it's just the garage that we added at one point.
And that was to the south side of the structure.
And we do have signed letters from all of our neighbors in the circle. That I believe we emailed you to Josh, so hopefully they're in the packet.
My idea of putting it as close to the property line on the side is to keep it out of the middle of the yard, basically, on that north edge. Because if it was 15 feet from the setback, it would be out in the middle of the yard, and I think it wouldn't look very good.
You do back up to the high school, correct?
We do.
Yeah, so there's no.
Yeah, on the other side of the tree line is actually the new,
Two bleachers.
the bathrooms that they built for the field.
Mhm.
Yeah, so our backyard is just the football field.
This is a public meeting, so I'll open it up to anyone wishing to speak for or against this application. Seeing no one, I will return the discussion back to the board.
Like establishing a precedent, I feel more comfortable with 7 or 8.
Well, with the hedgerow there, it helps, but it will be right up against the hedgerow. There won't be any wiggle room between the building and.
Okay, so I believe on the application that Dale filled out, it's just the front corner would be 5 feet and the back would be more like 7 because of the way the property moved.
Opposite.
Opposite, the front is 7 and the back is 5?
And the back is 5.
Okay.
Is that if you look at the picture of the map, because I referenced it off the corner of that north driveway,
Mhm.
which is, according to the survey map, is 7 feet from the property line. So I just moved it back to the required, I believe it's 50 feet
Yeah, we're at 50.
from the front, and positioned the stakes basically in that area. So the idea is to leave the hedgerow intact
Right.
and not interfere with the hedgerow at all.
What if you ran that parallel with that property line of 7 feet?
7 feet parallel, can you run it 7 feet all the way? So then it wouldn't be angled,
That's
it wouldn't go with the property line, which I think is not aesthetically gonna look.
Yeah, the idea of pushing it back is to hide it more than anything, to get it to the edge of the property line.
I mean, obviously, we'll take whatever recommendations you offer, but aesthetically, I think it would look more pleasing if it actually followed the property line. So it may be.
Well, that's what we're
it'll
asking,
look
That's
very
right.
that's
same.
exactly what we're asking for.
Well, you said 7 feet in the back as well?
Yes,
That's
the-
parallel to the
so that
property
it's
line.
parallel to the property
Yeah, I-
line, the front corner would be 7 feet and the rear corner would be 7 feet.
Yeah, that,
It won't be too close to pushed out towards the pool?
yeah, it'll push the back out just a couple feet. but-
Okay, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to be angled in the same
Yeah.
direction of the property line.
Right, so it's.
Yeah, the
No,
driveway,
we'll be.
That
the
makes
side
sense.
driveway doesn't follow the property line. As you can see, it's angled, but
When you're in the space, you won't notice the difference.
Yeah.
You can see it on paper, when you're in the space, you
Yeah.
won't even notice it.
Yeah, okay.
That'll provide you with that extra footage for maintenance between the structure and the property.
Yeah. Understood.
Now, I understand it can't be pushed back any further because of the location of the pool.
It would be closer, than I would like to the pool. It would kind of eliminate that area walkthrough that we have.
Right.
But I also, since it's going to look like a garage, it's gonna have a garage door in the front, I really wanted it to be at the end of the driveway that's already existing.
Right.
yeah, the driveway ends within 50 feet setback from the front.
Yeah, so we went, yeah, so we did 50, what did we do, 54?
Yeah, I
Just to
think
make
it's,
Do we need an extra variance because it's not behind the rear line of the house?
Yes.
True.
Isn't that what you asked us to pay for, Josh? Already, we already did that, the extra variance.
That's correct. Unfortunately, that component is not advertised. Does the board have a copy of the letter of support and the visual representation of the proposed garage, just to get that on the record?
We have photos.
We have photos, do you have
Of the structure?
No, we have photos with it. of the
Yeah,
yard,
the location?
of the location.
So this is,
that's
okay, so this is what we're going after. It'll be, from Sodders, most likely. It'll match the color of the house. And then these are the signatures of all the neighbors who are right in our circle next to us. That's what we are looking at.
Can we keep this?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
Yep,
do
it's okay.
you have copies?
I don't of the one, but. We have the copy shed and sent to you.
Okay, so we do have from all of the people in the cul-de-sac on that end of Sharon Court, who signed a letter with a picture of the proposed shed, or the proposed accessory structure, that they do not agree.
You're calling it a garage workshop, are you gonna be running electric out to it, or it used to be?
Do you want an electric to it at some point?
Eventually, I would like to,
But not.
because I'm gonna put my power tools in there. But I haven't done any projected research on it.
but it won't be used for living space.
Oh, no.
Condition not to be used as living space and not be used for commercial purposes. Just gentlemen's hobby.
That's all the things I need to make.
Yeah. Now, how do you do this?
No, we can act on the setback, but we need to table it to the next meeting for that.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, the code, the way the code is written, the front of the accessory structure has to be behind the rearmost line of the house,
Okay.
which in this case, it wouldn't even fit because it
Right.
would not meet the rear setback anyway. But that was not part of the notice, the public notice in the Herald.
Oh, okay.
So, we unfortunately do have to table this to the next meeting to get that noticed.
Okay.
So we're not changing the location, but we do have to publish that it's, doesn't meet that qualification.
Right.
I'm
And I-
sorry, can you just explain that a little bit more to me? So we were told they had to be 50 feet from the back and 50 feet from the front, but it has to be behind your house?
It has to be 50 feet from the rear lot line, and behind, the front of the building has to be behind the rearmost line of the primary structure or the home,
Okay.
which in your lot would not fit because your lot is high-shaped and kind of short.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the board doesn't, I don't think the board has a problem with the location, but we just can't approve the location because of the notice to the paper.
Okay.
So are you okay with tabling this until the November meeting and then?
Yeah, I mean, we were hoping we could get it in before winter, but it is what it is.
Yeah, you've already paid for the variance. I do apologize.
Yeah.
It was an oversight on my part.
Okay, oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Okay, understood.
So,
So they have to, it has to be a notice in the paper that the structure would not be meeting the guidelines of it being behind the backside of the house. Because our lot is not designed that way.
right.
So yeah, it would have to be tabled because that would have to be publicized and then it would have to come back here and anybody, even though we've had all the neighbors sign off on it, anybody who was opposed to it would come and speak on that. Okay?
Well, legally, we couldn't
Okay,
do it.
yeah, okay. So we'll be back then.
I'll make a motion to table to the next meeting of November 19th.
Second. All those in favor?
I,
All right, we'll see you guys next month.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Can you read the tree, please?
Brook Tree Lane covered porch located at 1146 Brook Tree Lane, applicant Todd and Ellsbury is requesting area variances to allow for construction of a new 8-foot by 9-foot gabled covered front porch with a front setback of 42 feet, where the minimum required is 50 feet. The difference is 7 feet on a 0.4 acre parcel having SPL number 065-105-1-96, located in an R1 single-family residential district under section 350-10 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you explain to the board your name, your address, and what you plan to do, please?
Sure thing. Thank you, board, for considering this. My name is Todd Ellsbury, 1146 Brook Tree Lane, off Hole Road. A brief description of the project is simple, humble, 8x9 covered front porch, just to protect from the elements as I'm getting older. Just want a little protection from the weather and someplace to sit and look over the neighborhood and hopefully beautify the neighborhood. So that's really about it. A couple of posts that sit just past the current sidewalk to be dug into the ground below the frost line, according to what the construction manager said, and it's really about it, pretty simple.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for the applicant before I open it up?
How far will that extend beyond your front stoop there?
That'll go, I mean, as far as the front stoop, there's a sidewalk in front of the front stoop, and it's gonna go just past the sidewalk, matter of inches.
Just enough to get the post in?
What's that?
Just enough to get the post?
Just enough to get the post in.
So
Yep.
about 9 feet, just over 9 feet.
I think it's about 8.5 feet. From edge of the door to the post.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak for or against this application? Seeing no one, I'll return the discussion back to the board. Any other comments?
Straightforward.
It's straightforward. The only location that makes sense for this house is at the front door in the front of the house.
Certainly not excessive.
No. It will dress up the front of the house. A lot of the houses along this subdivision have had additions over the years, so it will fit right in with the rest of the neighborhood. And it's only going to be 8 feet wide and 9 feet deep, so it's not at all excessive. No plans to enclose it.
No plans to close it at all.
Pursuant to NYCR Section 617 of the Environmental Code, I'll make a motion for type 2 seeker.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Findings. The request is not out of character with the neighborhood. Driving around that subdivision, a lot of porches have been added, there've just been features added to the front of the houses. When they were built, they were all rather flat, and now they're all getting a little bit of just embellishment. Style to the front. That house has a southern exposure, so the sun comes right in and probably bakes right into your front door. So that's going to cover the front door from the sun. It's also going to cover it from the elements, the rain, the snow. And it is only coming out 9 feet, so it's certainly not excessive. So not achievable by any other method. It's not substantial based on the dimensions. There are no adverse physical or environmental impacts to the site or to the neighborhood. Difficulty is I'll call it self-created, but the house was built without a front porch. It just had a stoop, and it's definitely going to be an attractive change. And there is no one from the neighborhood speaking against this, so and really the neighbor to the west isn't going to see it with the hedgerow that's there, and it'll be attractive for the neighbor to the north and the neighbor across the street. Any other additions, comments?
It's an 8 by 9
It's little
covering of a existing stoop inside.
to protect the front door. So I'll make a motion to grant an area variance at 1146 Brook Tree Lane for the applicant Todd Ellsbury to allow the construction of an 8-foot wide by 9-foot deep gabled covered front porch with a front setback of 42 feet where 50 feet is required on a .4 acre parcel with SPL number 065.05-1-96, located in an R1 single-family district under the code of the town of Webster.
Second.
Mrs. Bola?
Aye.
Mr. Centola?
Aye.
Mr. Hauser?
Aye.
Mr. Spagnano?
Aye.
I will condition that you need all necessary government permits before starting the project. The porch will not be enclosed, and you have 1 year to start meaningful construction from this evening.
Great, thank you.
You have your variance and stop back to the town, and you can start getting your permits.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Willow Lane covered porch,
Next.
located at 671 Willow Lane. Applicant Brian Bishoping is requesting area variances to allow for construction of a new 13-foot and 22-foot gabled front porch with a front setback of 27 feet, where the minimum required is 40 feet. Difference of 13 feet on a 0.46 acre parcel having SBL number 065.13-2-11, located in R3 Single Family Residential District under Section 350-10 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Hello again.
Good evening again. I didn't say it earlier, I'm Adam Cummings, representing, or helping my friend Brian to represent this one. And Brian Bishop from 671 Willow Lane. I do have to clarify on the letter of intent that we did provide as part of the application, just wanted to make sure to point that out. We're under the impression we're in a different zoning, so thank you to Josh and the building department for correcting that and making sure it's accurate on the agenda and the public notice. So I just wanted to point that out. We wrote it wrong in the letter of intent, but he did it correctly, so I just wanted to compliment and commend him for catching that. So for this one, what we're looking for is the front porch. Right now, there's an existing front stoop. This is very similar to the one previously, but Brian's house is a little bit different than that one. So that is the front stoop. And there should be another rendering on it, but what he's looking to do is cover it. This all came about from not only the previous one that keeps getting cabled each month, but he has a neighbor, a couple neighbors that come over and they hang out. It's nice to have, much like you said at the last application, it's nice to get front porches back onto houses so that neighbors want to talk to each other instead of going to the back of their houses in the private living room spaces. So if you can zoom in on that, Josh, again, that's what we're looking to do. That's actually an exact replica of the front porch. Angles of the roof match what are above his windows here in terms of angles, but that's an exact measurement from the house across the street on the east side of the road. So that's actually the same dimension as that one in terms of this elevation view there. It is deeper because of the way his house is with the overhang and to cover the front stoop. That's why it's 13 feet closer. His house currently is at, the survey is accurate, it's current, is at 40.8 on the garage, or on the house side, and on the garage side it's 40.4 because you have to take into account the overhang. So he always, any structure for a porch to go on the front would have to go closer to the road and require a variance. So in this case, the reason why the 13 feet is brought in is because of that stoop that's there. He does want to extend it a little further because when the swing of the door and having a step that's big enough, it is problematic as you're trying to do both. So he's trying to remedy a couple of things. We don't feel that it's substantial in nature. It is a corner lot. It does allow it to be 10 feet closer than it wasn't a corner lot. But what we're looking for is this to also complement, hopefully, the accessory structure if he ever does succeed in getting that. But it does have a covered entryway that he doesn't currently have. It does architecturally match the neighborhood and this house particularly. And with it being a corner lot, it doesn't obstruct any views for any traffic, pedestrians, or anything else that would be going in there. So while it is 13 feet closer, don't feel that it's substantial or a high enough magnitude to be detrimental to his application success.
How wide is the front door?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
What's the width of the front door?
I believe it's a standard 36-inch width and 7 foot tall.
So the swing of the door will be
Yeah.
36 inches?
Yeah, and what put, not that I'm having a wider stoop architecturally, is nice if you ever want to put a double door on. This type of house does lend itself to having double doors or 7-foot wide houses, because staircases are immediately in, so some people do modify those. Once again, this sticks with the land, not just to Brian Bishop who owning this, but it would lend itself if himself or a future owner wanted to add in a second door for 2 of them in there, that stoop would accommodate that as well. And with the symmetry of the house and those 2, you can see it right there with the 4 windows, you have the 2 double on the sides and the 2 in the middle. If you just put it above the 1 single door, it doesn't symmetrically look as appealing.
No, the location makes perfect sense because it's symmetrical between the upstairs windows.
Right. And it's directly in between the 2 double hung windows on the lower side. And yes, it does allow itself to move the lamp if you need to, but he also has the 1.5 foot overhang that he has to contend with this house architecture, and that's incorporated into the 13. And once again, the 13 feet is the total overhang, so the actual post of the structure is in, but he's got a 1 foot overhang from the post.
So is it 13 feet?
It's 13
from
feet.
the face of the house, or 13 feet?
13 feet from the face of the porch to the front setback.
Okay.
Or sorry, to the house, my apologies. We are looking for the 13-foot reduction from this porch, so that would be...
Right, from the front of the porch, not
Yes.
from the overhang. of the
Yes, I
upstairs.
misunderstood that one. So you're looking for a front setback of 27 feet. I was getting confused with the numbers. He's supposed to have 40 feet. He's asking for 13 feet relief. So he will be 27 feet from the right-of-way line to the front face of this porch. So from the front face of the porch back to the front of the building is 13 feet.
Anyone from the board with any questions or comments?
If you're calling it a porch, are you gonna put any type of railing around the exterior of it, or is it just gonna be a covered?
It's just going to be like the last application. It'll just be a gabled roof, no sides, and because it's only 1 step, it doesn't really need a railing on it.
And are you gonna pave underneath it to facilitate sitting?
It's going to be the concrete stoop.
Thank you.
And once again, it's a 1-step stoop down to a sidewalk that's existing. Yeah, it's depicted right there. Of the concrete stoop.
What's outside that concrete stoop that's being covered? Lawn?
Yes.
Well, it won't be
You're
getting
not
longer.
anticipating putting any decking there?
That's the concrete.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood your question. Yes,
The concrete step is getting enlarged.
Oh, thank you.
sorry, I misunderstood your question. And that's going to tie to the concrete sidewalk. So to clarify that one, your concrete stoop is extending out, because I missed that one. Concrete stoop is coming out, and your posts, your structure is going to attach to that concrete stoop.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
So you have to step up approximately
7
5 feet from the existing stoop line now. Going from the driveway,
I believe it's 5 feet from the edge of the house over to that stoop in the sidewalk, so you're adding 8 feet.
Why does it need to be 13 feet deep?
Functionality. Put a table and chairs right there for 3 to 4 people to sit at. Space, it's eating up very quickly.
Is that, the size to me seems large. I ran around with a tape measure measuring my porch, my son's porch, my next door neighbor's porch. Mine is very similar with the offset door and a little bit wider porch. And it's just over 7 feet. And I have ample room for a couple of chairs, a table, the door to swing and not be in the way of anybody. So I extended it to 10 feet and made it 10 feet, and with 10 feet, it seemed significantly large, and given how close your house is to the road already, my concern is the depth of it. Just, it just seemed deep.
So if you're at 10 feet, I'm only doing 12 feet of concrete. So the overhang is 13. So the roof line is 13, there's a 1 foot overhang. So the concrete is 12 feet off the front of the house, 20 feet wide.
Where's the post going to be? The furthest most point out
They're
closest
gonna
to
be
the
1
street
foot
is
in.
1
1
foot
foot in.
13 feet.
They're going to be touching the concrete.
So your posts are not going to touch the concrete?
They're gonna be on the concrete, but they're in,
They're right on the corner.
right on that corner. And then the soffit goes 1 foot, or the overhang goes 1 foot beyond the posts and the concrete. That's
So then you're,
why we're here for 13 instead of 12.
The concrete itself is 12 by 20.
all right, this does not give me that.
So that's an elevation view of the entire roof structure, not the concrete that would be below the roof.
I believe I only need variance for the structure, not the concrete.
So if we were gonna depict the concrete, we would have a dashed line underneath it that would be inside of that rectangle by a foot on each side. If that clarifies that. So this is strictly the roof. So are you saying that yours is, you're envisioning it more just covering the sidewalk?
No, I'm envisioning the roof covering the entire porch,
Right.
which is what I have.
Yep.
But mine is a little over 7 feet, and I brought it out another 3 feet, and it seemed, 10 feet seemed like a significant porch as far as depth, which would then allow the setback to be 30 feet from the road, which just makes it a little less impactful. But I'm just one voice.
I would agree with you, Corinne. I mean, I'm looking at the sketch on the survey, and they have the 13 feet from
The overhang.
the overhead.
Oh,
So
from
they
the
could
structure.
run a 14-foot deck. Like you usually have a patio, like a covered porch.
The intent is to go from the face of the building, not from the overhang on the second floor.
I understand. So that would be
Structure
a
is on
14
the
foot.
Not, the overhang is not called out.
I understand.
Okay.
So 13 feet from the building, 12 feet from the existing overhang.
Correct.
11 and a half.
But as those numbers are shown right up there, you've got 40.8 is to the structure, and then you've got 13 feet from the structure over, which is why we're here for.
Yeah, 40.8 is.
We're at
is
27 feet instead of 27.8.
The 40.8 is measured to the foundation, not the overhang.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so if I'm looking at what you're proposing as far as the patio, you're proposing a 14-foot wide patio having 22 feet.
No, the roof is 13 by 22.
So this dimension should be
Okay.
from the building, not from the
We're
overhang.
talking apples and oranges, but I know where you're coming from now. Thank you.
Correct.
All right, this is a public meeting. I will open it to anyone wishing to speak for or against this application.
Jan Armstrong, 670 Willow Lane. Brian faces my property directly, as we talked before about the outbuilding he wants to build. I was pretty shocked by this proposal for the porch when I first learned of it, given that it's looking for a 286 square foot porch. That's kind of a huge porch, because it stretches not only into the variance request to the road, but 22 feet is that across the front of the building. If you look at the drawing, and you look at the numbers there, and you look at the picture with the lines drawn in, they don't seem compatible. And I would like to really know if those are, you know, the picture, Josh, do you have that? Let's see, that doesn't look like what we're talking about in the drawing. It looks like on the drawing, it goes almost to that next window. I'm not sure about the peak really doing anything. The letter of intent that came with the application was confusing. It brought in information like that this is going to be compatible with the soon-to-be approved storage unit or whatever it is that Brian is seeking to build. That puts in 25% of what's required for setback closer to my house, which I already looked at his house that has the trailers and the boats and the request for the shed or whatever it's called. It strikes me as being manipulative to talk about, well, this will be compatible with the shed, the outbuilding, because see, if we put that black industrial siding up there, then the case could be made that, well, see, there's that siding there, so now we can put the black industrial siding horizontally on the outbuilding. Brian, as we speak right now, has a boat, a recreation car, the Airstream trailer and the snowmobile trailer, all in various places on the property, 3 of which are right in my face. So if this goes through, now it will be closer to my property. It will be used, again, that's a pretty big porch. I have concerns about the business nature and the use of that house and property as a business. As late as yesterday, there was again day laborer's car or truck in the driveway where, you know, they meet to go on business. There have been ladders all over the place all summer in terms of the yard. When you start to get to 22 feet, like 22 feet, really? That fits a lot of things besides people. The house is not, you know, the upkeep is terrible. Should that hedgerow be ever tended for and moved back, as it probably should be in terms of traffic visibility, then again, there's this big jutting out porch with the dog house and the trailer and another trailer, possibly this building, and this huge porch coming up now in front.
Please stay at the microphone because we can't pick you up with the records of these.
So, but I want you to realize what we're talking about here. We're talking about a horizontal line of various and sundry objects, we'll call them, and now he wants to encroach upon the state setback with this huge porch. I object to this type of thing. I also find it controversial that I realize perhaps it was posted as it should be in the Herald, but the sign that this property is under review has been up continuously. So the neighbors, unless Brian told them, you know, someone walking by that he's going to be reviewing this porch proposal, they don't think that there's anything else going on. They think that sign just pertains to the outbuilding. And so it really concerns me in that letter of intent that, well, we'll put this on and it will coordinate with the outbuilding. It's kind of like...
Mrs. Armitage, did you receive the postcard that would have come out for this application?
Yes.
Okay.
But the postcard doesn't say what is being reviewed. It only says the property is under review.
But then now that information will be on the town website.
But we have an active review going on already, so if you got that, you say, oh yeah, that's right, that's where the neighbors are objecting to the thing. You would not realize there's another review.
All I can say is the neighbors are appropriately noticed, and then
It's up to them to
what
look to see
I would
what's
do
being
would go
reviewed.
look at the town website and see if there's any new information.
I understand.
But
I understand fully what you're saying.
But we do understand your concerns, but right now, we're not discussing the outbuilding, we're
But the
discussing the
outbuilding is
porch.
discussed in the application, so.
Well, and,
There's a separate
but we're separate, we're separating it, we're looking at just the porch, we're not considering the outbuilding.
Okay, and in that case, like I said, we're not talking here about, oh, we need an extra foot. Okay, we're talking about 25% of the required setback being modified to accommodate this big porch. 286 square feet of porch on an already private property. And I am concerned, we said that things that might be appropriately put in the garage, you have grinding stores, you have a big, huge machine, you know, in that, which I'm sure is related to business, and that's all, you know, somebody's private business. But when the ladders are outside, and the snowmobile trailer, which is also used sometimes as a work trailer, and now we're gonna have this porch, you know, it's as though, okay?
We can certainly condition any approvals on the porch that material will not be stored on the porch other than tables and chairs and the appropriate porch type decor.
I am concerned though about, again, I guess I'm just baffled that you would suggest building something that requires a variance as we go through this other process when, like, for such a huge thing, you could have a 10-foot, and you can, why doesn't, Brian, why don't you stay in the variance?
There is, are your comments complete? 'Cause then
I
we'll
guess
close the
my
public hearing
comment
and
is
we'll
a question
discuss.
as well, it's like, so,
There is nothing, I will answer your question.
okay,
The
thank you.
setback is 40 feet, and the
Right.
house is at 40 feet, 8 inches. So, anything beyond 8 inches done to this home requires variance.
Okay. But not,
Because all of the houses along that street are right on that setback.
right, but not necessarily 25% of that setback, because that's what we're talking about.
It's whatever the board grants if the board determines to grant it.
I
But
understand that.
we do take that into consideration.
I'll conclude my comments with that I would appreciate very much if this application was tabled until there was resolution on the outbuilding, because I think that would give me and the neighbors a much clearer picture of what this property is going to look like in our neighborhood. And I realize you guys have put in a ton of time on these projects. I thank you for your expertise and for your concern.
Unfortunately, I don't think we could tie the two projects together. This is a separate application. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not so sure about that.
Really?
I was just trying to do a little research on that, you know, if the board feels that, you know, when we look at character of the neighborhood and you look at all the criteria that, you know, globally, you want to see the entire picture. I don't think if the board wanted to vote to consolidate that, I don't think there would be anything wrong with that. I mean, otherwise, you know, in a sense, you're sticking your head in the sand. But I'm not saying that there's a relationship that impacts character, but there could be.
I'd like to interject. We are trying to complement the two, recognizing that if it happens.
Don't interject just yet.
Sorry.
Okay, we'll give you the heads up. So, I'm just responding down to your comment. I don't think there's anything that prohibits you from consolidating. Now, it doesn't mean that if they're both considered at the same time, you couldn't approve one and not the other.
Right.
But, I mean, in effect, I think,
Well, I make the distinction that front porches are found, you know, around town all the time. You know, and I think this board has taken special consideration to the accessory building application above and beyond the Call of Duty. I would, separate the two.
we could separate the two of them in the same application too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying, I think the board would be fooling themselves to pretend that the other item is not there.
Well, we noticed that.
We know.
Yeah, we're talking about it.
Right, right.
I think it's the applicant that has made it more difficult in that references the other one as part of the application for this. I think it's going to match the the structure that we're trying to get approved. He's one tying it together, not us. Because I agree with you that he opened the door to tie it together because he references it. So,
I don't see, I don't personally see them being tied together at all. The porch is a roof and pillars and a concrete slab. It doesn't bear any impact to the aesthetics of any possible accessory structure. And if anything, it would give some character to the front of the house and maybe dress it up a little bit. I know when I had visited that property, the applicant had discussed slowly making improvements, residing the house as time goes on. Maybe the porch is the first step to do that. I don't know.
Just so the record's clear, Josh, the neighbor that's in opposition with respect to the manner in which the home is being maintained, in spite of the fact that all of the collection of vehicles and whatnot may not be visually pleasing to her, is there any code violations in existence, given what the neighbor described?
I believe there is an open code violation. I think there's one too many recreational vehicles or trailers being stored on the property. There are some that are in code compliant locations, but I believe there are a couple open issues, which is what prompted the applicant to come forward with the accessory building application. We have not taken any further code enforcement actions, recognizing that he's been in the process trying to apply for this to help alleviate and negate some of the existing violations.
So out of compliance in terms of simply recognized by the town, or there is a matter pending in terms of an actual filed code violation?
I can't recall off the top of my head where it was. It started out back in January or February of this year. Do you want to speak to?
So there currently is no issue. We talked, and the location of the snowmobile trailer is the issue, and it's currently in my driveway. So currently there is no issue, but when it was parked next to the driveway,
And I'm sorry, that's with respect to the boat trailer?
Snowmobile trailer.
And how does the accessory structure alleviate that issue?
that was the one code issue.
So that if it's in the driveway, it's a non-issue?
Correct. So,
But there's the other recreational vehicle, the automobile, correct? The covered one that's been in the driveway?
Our public hearing is not closed.
Okay.
But we are aware of all of the different pieces of stuff in the
Right.
yard.
There, okay,
There's
that's
a car,
some of
boat,
it. Mhm.
an RV, a snowmobile trailer. I think that's it.
Then we're missing
Not
things.
yours.
Mhm.
I agree with you that 13 feet is too excessive as far as width and feet. Not with the front porch, more than accommodate, front porches situations, and this one also.
I also, based on this one alone, would still be nice to have, since it is such a large structure, it's not some 8x9 overhang with 2 additional posts. This is far more of a significant structure, and as the structure becomes more complex, I think I would like to see more detail on stuff.
Well, I noticed there's only 2 posts.
Well, that's,
It's spanning 22 feet.
right, that's what I'm saying. I would assume you're gonna have either an architect or engineer stamp those drawings in the building permit, because that's a long span for that. Plus, a lot of it is, I won't say misleading, but difficult to understand as far as what's going on underneath it. It required the applicant to have asked him a question twice before he actually answered about whether or not it's going to be paved underneath there. A simple dashed line with arrows pointing to whether it's the overhang or the building, so it clearly shows dimensions, you know, between what and what end. Okay, if your structure's going to be 13 feet, what's the width of the concrete underneath as well? I think it'd be nice to have additional information to help me make a better decision on that.
Are you comfortable with the dimensions being requested?
I personally think it's a little large, but I'm not gonna tell someone how to have a picnic or enjoy a beer with their neighbors after work. I think it, size-wise, doesn't bother me as much as the infringement as the setback, right, well, the span and the setback. If he was still 40 or 50 feet from the street, it wouldn't bother me as much, but the fact he's encroaching more into the setback is the part that bothers me about that
Well, that's
13
because,
foot depth.
that's what I meant by size.
Okay, yeah, no, I agree with you. For me, it's not the size, it's the fact that
You know,
it's eating up a lot of
if he
setback.
narrowed it up, it'd be that much greater of a setback.
I agree, it'd be a lot more palatable for me, but like I said, I think, just because we think it's too large, maybe that's the size they need. I question whether or not, based on the front setback, whether or not it's something that should be done. As far as,
Okay, so your question is size.
yeah, I do, but, yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I have no issue with the width. My porch goes the length of the whole
Yeah,
front of my house, so I
front porches are great.
front porches are great. I just, because you're unfortunately on a corner lot and only 40 feet from the road,
You can't sneeze without hearing something.
I would be more comfortable with a 30-foot setback than a 27-foot setback. It's the joy of the corner lot.
Yeah, so,
And the joy of, I mean, it's the setbacks are what they are.
so I'll confess, part of what's driving it, he said having an umbrella, or sorry, a table with 4 chairs, it's because he does have neighbors, contrary to the one who keeps speaking at these, he does have neighbors come over and hang out with him. He does have dogs that they like to congregate at the front part. So that is driving it up the size of the portion. Would you be willing to reduce it down to, and I agree, your job is to find the minimum variance possible, so reducing it down to 10 feet on that, instead of the 13-foot dimension, would reduce down the variance request to 30 feet from the front setback. So therefore, you would only be looking at a deviation of going from 40 feet to 30 feet.
Correct.
So we'd like to revise the application to do that. And once again, that's for a gabled roof porch, the construction being similar to it. In terms of the engineering part, we do acknowledge that that would go through the building permit process. So that could be a condition, that a building permit would have to be needed for this one. And any requirements he has. Or he or she, the department has.
Mr. Sicola, are you still requesting the additional information as far as the architectural?
No, I think as long as somewhere along the line, that 22-foot span for a clear span is large.
It is very large.
So I'm just assuming that in his zeal to get something submitted, he put a minimal effort into projecting what he wants to show us. Not saying it's an architectural and engineering stamp drawing, but assuming that he will need one to get a building permit. I'm good with it.
The building department's gonna have to issue a permit, and they'll have to approve what's
That's
submitted
right,
to them.
yeah. Other than that,
Size and the size to 10 feet deep, like 22 feet, will still maintain the 22-foot length.
And once again, the key is that setback.
you have a front setback of 30 feet.
Correct. Pursuant to New York CRR Section 617 of the Environmental Code, I'll make a motion for a type 2 seeker.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, anyone want to take a stab at findings?
We all can stand that.
All right,
I'm sure you can stand that. Which is our kind
I just, I don't think it affects the essential character of the neighborhood. As Don mentioned, front porches are common, and although this one might be a little larger than most, it still doesn't upset the character of the neighborhood. I believe there's other remedies, but the fact that he has already agreed to reduce it down to 10 feet instead of 13 feet, I believe it was achieved by other feasible methods. He lowered the amount of variance requested, so while it's still large, I don't think it's really significant. And,
no matter what he does, because of the house is
Yeah, but
right
the
at
corner-
that setback, you need a variance.
right,
it's a sneeze.
and I don't think there's any adverse impact on the physical and environmental conditions of the lot or the neighborhood. And being on a corner lot, once you purchase or build there, you're kind of tied in there, so while it is self-created, there is very little remedy except to get a variance
Yeah.
to do anything to improve the
Excuse me, the house was placed there, the applicant purchased the house from someone else. So it's not like he placed the house right at the front, it was there when he had it, so. All right. Anyone care to take a stab at the variance?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the requested covered porch at 671 Willow Lane to applicant Brian Bishop, requesting the area variance to construct a 10 by 22 foot gable covered front porch having a front setback of 30 feet where 40 feet is required. On a lot 0.46 acres having an SBO number 065.13-2-11 located in R3 residential district under section 350-10 Code of Webster.
Second?
Mr. Hauser,
Aye.
Mrs. Volo,
Aye.
Mr. Santola,
Aye.
Mr. Spagnano.
Aye.
I would condition the variance that the applicant must obtain all necessary governmental permits, that construction, you have 1 year from this evening to start meaningful construction, that no outside storage other than typical porch things will be on the porch. This is not going to become a pile of eyesore. And that the 10 feet is from the face of the building, not from the face of the overhang.
Can we have that, they shouldn't be allowed to be able to add walls and screen it in.
And the
Not to be
porch
enclosed.
cannot be enclosed. So the front setback will be 30 feet, is that clear in your motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Have a good
All right,
evening.
we have one variance. All right, Maple Drive DTH garage.
Located at 751 Maple Drive, applicant Raymond Schlegel is requesting area variances to allow for the construction of a new 24-foot by 28-foot garage with a front setback of 30 feet, where the minimum required is 60 feet, and for the placement of the proposed garage being closer to the front property line and the rear line on a 0.52 acre parcel having SBL number 063.19-1-9.1, located in an R3 single-family residential district under section 350-12 and 350-36 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Good evening.
Hello.
Can you describe just what you're doing to the board? Describe your project to the board briefly.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you describe your project that you're going to do to the board?
Yeah, it's a 12 by 28 pole garage at 751 Maple Drive.
Mr. Stengel, you said 12 by 28. Oh, just a moment. That's being switched.
Is it, your dimensions are 12 by 28 or 24 by 28?
Yeah, that's right.
24 by 28, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
And it will be located
To the north side of the house.
on that arch driveway.
Yes, right behind the driveway.
Okay.
Can you push the garage back a little further to the west?
Pardon me?
Can you push the proposed garage back a little further from Maple Drive to the west,
To the west.
towards your rear yard?
To the west?
Yes.
To the back of your home, that's what he's saying, to the back of your home?
Yeah.
Is this garage going to be used to store your vehicles?
Yes.
Okay. So it needs to be tied to the driveway roughly.
I'm thinking you want it further back just to gain entry to get in and out of the garage based on the geometrics of the driveway with the curve. It's gonna be tough to turn into it if it's right adjacent
You
to
can
it.
make asphalt do it anyway, you know. But, you know, myself, I think it would look a little nicer if it was pushed.
I think it would look nice, but more importantly, I think it makes it a little easier to get in and out.
Yeah. I mean, even if you lined up the rear of the proposed garage with the house, there was, I see he's got a catch basin in there, you want to approach it that.
Well,
Because the ground does collect a lot of water in his backyard.
and that's partially concerned. Is this, are you on septic at this location or on sewer?
Sewer.
Okay, so I don't have to worry about leach lines. Is it possible to take the back line of the garage and move it closer to be in line with the back line of the house?
Yes.
How far does that take me?
About 8 feet.
Which would then give you a little more apron to pull in and out of it as well.
Right. Yes.
current setback 38.
We just want to tell them the back of the garage will line up with the rear of the house,
Okay, we don't need to set the distance.
and it'll be 30 feet from that.
You're right, about 8 feet by scale. Very good.
All right, this is a public meeting. I'll open it up to anyone wishing to speak for or against this application. Seeing no one, I will return it back to the board. What the board is discussing is moving the garage further to the west by 8 feet so that the back of the garage lines up with the rear wall of your house.
I don't know if I can move it back that far because of the slope.
The slope, okay.
Yes.
Is that,
I'd like to keep the garage close to the driveway if I could, the front of it.
okay.
Well, doesn't that slope run towards that catch basin there?
Yes.
There isn't a lot of slope there, is there? Not that much.
There's probably about a 3-foot drop down to that catch basin.
You're probably right. I didn't envision
I,
I didn't notice it.
that.
No, I said I honestly didn't think it was significant.
No,
I noticed it sloped, I didn't,
Because it looks, the farther slope, the one back where you see those 3 trees, looks far more significant than the one from the driveway to the catch basin.
right.
I see it. It starts to drop at the tree shape is what it looks like.
Significant, yes.
What is that with respect to the back wall of the house? There's towards that.
Right about where Josh is pointing.
Maybe at least push it back 5 feet.
I think 5 feet, I think, should work. I think
Do you think you
aesthetically.
could push it back 5?
From the driveway?
From the driveway, push it back 5 feet, which then gives you some apron as well?
I'd have to look at that. I could probably push it back 4.
And it's, I mean, it's still further back from the front of the house. And if it were attached to the house, it wouldn't, yeah.
I mean, especially since the house is already close to the right-of-way line anyhow. I mean, what we're talking about, we're just trying to make it more aesthetically and honestly give him better access. If 4 is what he wants.
Well, the house is pre-existing before.
Right, I know, but
Unless we grant the variance to the garage, that could be there forever.
I understand, but I'm a little disappointed that I didn't notice
I didn't
the
notice that.
slope, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Just what I mean, I'm generally trying to pick up on this.
Me too.
But if he says 4, I'd say let's,
I would be okay with 4. It still pushes it back a little bit.
or
There-
just,
I mean,
let's say
there's-
35 feet instead of 30.65, make it 35 feet and call it a day.
Yeah, there, I mean, there is no, there's no way to make it comply with code putting it behind the house and have it serve the purpose it needs to, which is basically a garage. And the location of the front door of the house, you're not gonna wanna walk to the back of the house to,
So I'm looking at the picture on the screen right now.
yes.
You don't see that dip in that property. I did not see it.
It would be easier after raining,
It did rain today.
but, and then this was too. But I could see not wanting to move it too far from the front of the house as well, just based on its,
That's right, that's close.
so, so what the board is talking about is, instead of being 30.65 feet to the front of the garage, make it an even 35, so it's moving about 4 1/3 feet.
Okay,
So it's back a little bit, it's a little closer to compliance,
okay,
but still,
so move it back about 4 feet.
yeah,
Okay. I can do that.
that's okay?
Yep,
All right.
yep.
Any other comments from the board? All right, pursuant to New York CRR Section 617 of the Environmental Code, I'll make a motion for a type 2 seeker.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The request I'm going to say is not out of character with the neighborhood. This house and the neighboring house are both very close to the road, so the garage is going to be further from the road than either of the houses. And a lot of the houses up and down Maple Drive have added accessory structures or detached garages at some point in time. It will not create a detriment to nearby properties. There's a hedgerow to the north that shields it, and there's a house between this and the neighbor to the south. No complaints from the neighbors. Cheaper than any other method. It really, there is no good way to make it comply completely with the code, so this is a compromise, balancing all of the factors. The request is less substantial. It's certainly further from the road than the front of the houses. No adverse environmental or physical impacts. And in fact, we are trying to make sure we stay out of the catch basin with the building so as not to impact stormwater retention and flow. And the difficulty is not self-created. This house was built a long time ago. So the difficulty's been there for as long as the house has been there. And anything else that anyone wants to add? All right, I will make a motion to grant an area variance at 751 Maple Drive for a detached garage of size of 24 feet by 28 feet with a front setback of 35 feet where a minimum of 60 feet is required, and also to allow the proposed building to be closer to the front lot line than the rear line of the existing home on a .52 acre parcel having SPL number 063.19-1-9.1 located in an R3 single-family residential district.
Second.
Mrs. Bola?
Aye.
Mr. Santola?
Aye.
Mr. Hauser?
Aye.
Mr. Spagnano?
Aye.
Right, you have your variance conditioned, the board has approved your variance with a 35-foot front setback. You do need to get all necessary permits from the building department in the town, and you need to start the build within 1 year of this evening.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Ray, before you go, over here. Hello.
Okay.
This needs planning board approval as well,
Yes.
so, because of the size.
Okay, when is that gonna happen?
Well, You're welcome to submit the application anytime before October 29th. Oh, you already did it.
I did it.
Yeah, I have the, if you want to come tomorrow, we can talk about it, that's
Yeah.
really what else we need.
All right, that closes our public business
Okay.
at
And-
9:16. Moving on administrative matter, to approve the minutes for the August 13th meeting.
Okay. All right, so you want me to? Okay, I'll see you. Thank you. Yeah, you too.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the August 13th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nay. Or all those opposed? None? Okay. So we get 3 of the people at the meeting that were here to vote, so.
Who are those?
Mrs. Volo, Mr. Hauser, Mr. Central. And that closes all of the business